From a ref copping a box kick to the face to one getting absolutely cleaned up, and the most controversial decision ever seen at a World Cup. These are the craziest referee interference moments in rugby history. And before we get into some of the seriously bonkers moments like this one, we're kicking things off at the most humble end of the rugby spectrum. There's no packed stadiums, no big money contracts, no broadcast deals, just a bunch of blokes on a Saturday arvo doing what they love. The scrum half's got the ball at the base of the ruck, with the fly half calling for it so he can get the kick in. Simple enough stuff, happens tens of thousands of times a weekend across the globe. But I can't exactly say the same thing for what happens next.
You're holding him in, use it. Inside pass. Oh,
Fuck me, that'd hurt. I'd 100% react the same way he did. Understandable concern from the players too, because the ball was travelling. He'd be sucking in the deep ones after that, that's for sure. Credit to the man though, he dusted himself off, kept his composure and got on with it. A true professional. Unlike the next moment, which was anything but. And what a moment it was, to be honest. The 2011 Rugby World Cup, a Pool D match at North Harbour Stadium in Auckland, New Zealand, between South Africa and Samoa. Two of the most physical nations on the planet when it comes to our sport of rugby. There were some seriously big lads out on the pitch that day. So with that in mind, it should come as no surprise that both sides were going at each other full tilt. The breakdown was a war zone, and Nigel Owens had his hands full from the opening whistle. But things got hella controversial when Samoan fullback Paul Williams was holding on to South African flanker Heinrich Brusaw at this particular breakdown. Reason being, Brusaw had been doing it all day, but on this occasion, things boiled over. Now that's the question, isn't it? Was it really deserved? Personally, I think a yellow would have been sufficient. Yes, he struck him in the face, but it was with an open palm, not a closed fist. A red card at that point made an already extremely difficult match to win for the Samoans practically impossible. Something else to consider too, maybe a little bit of gamesmanship from Brusaw. He'd been winding the Samoans up all day, full well knowing something would happen, right? I'll leave that thought for you to ponder. Ultimately, Williams faced a disciplinary hearing, admitted guilt, and received zero further punishment given the circumstances. Whether you agree with the red or not, Nigel's card was the least surprising thing about that whole mess. Yellow or red, something was going to happen. And speaking of the greatest referee of all time, he pops up again very soon. Make sure you stick around so you don't miss that. But first, we need to look at something far worse than what we just witnessed, because this was a career ender. And I want you to pack your bags too, because we're heading to France for a junior French rugby league match between Saint-Yves and Toulouse. And truth be told, what happened here sent shockwaves through French rugby league and made headlines around the world. For context, the Saint-Yves player involved in the incident had already been suspended 4 games earlier in the season. The club president reportedly didn't even want him playing this match. So when he managed to get himself sin-binned, something he clearly wasn't happy about, the red mist well and truly descended. Yeah, career over right there. What a grub. Referee Benjamin Casti, brother of Catalans Dragons' Remy Casti, was taken to hospital with injuries to his cheekbone and jaw. The match was abandoned on the spot, and the French Rugby League Federation immediately flagged a potential lifetime ban for the player. And just for clarity, the reason I keep calling him the player is because no matter how much digging I did, I just couldn't find a name for this ugly mug. I wish I was able to drop it here in this video, and it's unfortunate that I'm unable to do that. On the off chance that you know who this guy is, feel free to let me know down in the comments. And while you're down there, if you could do me this small favour of liking the video and subscribing if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it. I do my best to bring you as much value as I can with these videos, and your support goes a really long way. And look, in terms of what you've just seen, there's not much more to really say about it, just an absolute disgrace of a moment. So with that in mind, let's lighten the mood a little bit with an incident that was just so goddamn unfortunate, because this next ref had absolutely zero say in what was coming his way. For that, we're at Thomond Park in Limerick, Ireland. It's Munster versus Racing Metro 92 back in 2013 for a pool game match of the Heineken Cup. Now, this was a massive occasion. Munster needed a bonus point win to leapfrog Leinster and secure a quarter-final spot. Thomond Park was absolutely rocking, and referee Wayne Barnes was in the middle of it all. Racing had already been reduced to 14 men inside the first 5 minutes after flanker Antoine Batu was shown a straight red for a knee to the head. So Munster were in full control, the crowd was electric, and everything was building nicely. Then, the 11th minute arrived.
Keep just changing his option and kicking the ball straight at Wayne Barnes.
Ian Keatley absolutely drilled him. The next snap was absolutely crazy. I think the funniest part though is that Barnes himself said afterwards the ball travelled 35 metres after hitting his face. No wonder it got the biggest cheer from the crowd at that point in the match. But look, it happens. A good falcon is a part of footy. We've all seen them before, and in saying that, on the other side of the world, this ref arguably copped it even worse. And for that, we're heading to regional Queensland, Australia. Mackay to be precise. A city of about 80,000 people sitting smack bang on the coast, roughly halfway between Brisbane and Cairns. It's Slade Point versus Cutter Ball in the Mackay Rugby Union competition. But unlike the last Falcon, this time it's significantly closer and significantly more violent. And here I am thinking the parents that know footy better than you do was the worst part about being a grassroots referee. The poor bloke got absolutely rocked. Low-key, I love the fact he was obliviously interviewed about it as well. That's pretty funny. But alas, it's time to change gears. Ever so slightly. We're moving on from one kind of accidental damage to another. And let me tell you something, this NRL referee had a far worse day than anyone in this video so far. We're heading to Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane, Australia. It's round 19 of the 2009 NRL season. Brisbane Broncos versus South Sydney Rabbitohs. Now, the Rabbitohs were flying high that day. They jumped out to a 34-12 lead by the 65th minute and were in full flight. The Broncos were scrambling, and right in the middle of all of that momentum, referee Tony De La Terras was trying to keep up with play and stay out of the way. Unfortunately for him, he was only able to manage one of those things. The gasp from the crowd as the replay was shown on the big screen says it all. Poor bloke didn't stand a chance, and I was not surprised in the slightest that Tony said afterwards he remembered absolutely nothing from the incident. The Rabbitohs would go on to win 44-12 with Boo Champion bagging a hat-trick. Meanwhile, after being stretchered off, somewhere in Brisbane Hospital, Tony De La Heras was still trying to figure out what day it was. Pretty rough stuff, but it's time to move from the most unfortunate moment in this video to one that could have gone a lot worse than it did. And for that, we're at Stadium MK in Milton Keynes, England. It's the 2015 Rugby World Cup, Pool B, South Africa versus the USA. Now, the Springboks were absolutely purring heading into the tournament. They're big, powerful, and dominant as you've seen already in this video. They're honestly the kind of team that makes you feel sorry for whoever's standing in their way on any given day. And on this particular day, it wasn't just the Americans.
Oh, some big contact there, not least on the referee, Pascal Gauzet.
I wasn't kidding when I said it could have gone a lot worse than it did. He could have genuinely ended up underneath hundreds of kilos there if he hadn't managed to get out of it. Unfortunately for the Americans, because the ref got caught in the crossfire, he blew the scrum for South Africa, which, let's be honest, probably only turned out one way. I do have to say though, compared to what's coming next, this bloke got off lightly. And we don't need to travel too far for it either. We only need to fast forward a couple of weeks to the quarter-final match at Twickenham between Scotland and Australia of the very same tournament. Now, Scotland had been absolutely magnificent this far. They were playing the best rugby of their generation without a shadow of a doubt. And on this particular day, they were taking it right up to the Wallabies. With the clock ticking into the final minute, Scotland led 34-32. They were seconds away from a famous victory and a place in the semi-finals. The crowd was electric, and upset for the ages was right there for the taking. And then South African referee Craig Zuber did the unthinkable. He made a decision that didn't just cost Scotland the game, but may have cost them a place in the semi-finals, and who knows, maybe even a shot at the World Cup itself.
In front. A penalty. The Iceman does it. Heartbreak for Scotland.
Bernard Foley slots it. 35-34 Australia. Game over. But, and there's a big but, should that have even been a penalty?
I can't determine whether Phipps or Strauss was the last person to touch it, and you know, it's a game-changing decision. He goes upstairs for TMO for things that are quite straightforward. This should have been a TMO decision all day long. I don't understand why he didn't do it.
It's good analysis, obviously, but it's the man of the hour's word that really drive home the magnitude of the mistake.
When I'm able to actually sit and review the incident, and I have the benefit of slow motion replays, that I can see the slightest of touches from Phipps of Australia, that this was an incident that I had to rule on in real time or in the moment. was because I simply wasn't entitled to refer to the TMO.
I don't doubt that's the last comment for a second, because ultimately Zubair made a decision that was the determining factor in the game, and he got it wrong. It was one of the most gut-wrenching moments in World Cup history for Scottish rugby, and honestly for rugby in general. No one wants to see a match that important be settled in that manner. Jeez, that was heavy. If you don't mind, I think we should tone the gravity down a little and make this a bit more fun. Let's head over to some sevens, and more specifically the third place playoff match between France and Fiji at the 2025 HSBC Sevens in Dubai. Now, as you're well aware, Sevens rugby is fast, open and chaotic at the best of times. There's acres of space, the defensive lines are thin, and if you get a clean break, you're usually gone. What you don't usually see is someone splitting a defensive line like Manueli Maisamoa did here.
Match. Here come Fiji again. Here comes the predator, Manuel Maisamoa. He's away, he's clear, and under the bar.
Trust the Fijian to be that brilliant and cheeky all at the same time. To deliberately use the ref as a shield from your opponent so you can swan dive for the try. It's the kind of shit that just puts the biggest smile on your face. And on the flip side, what are you supposed to do if you're the French bloke? Tackling the ref and drawing attention to the fact he's in the way was about all he could do. Because in my humble opinion, if the ref wasn't there, Maisamoa's through anyway. Regardless, it's a bit of fun. Just like what's coming up next too. We've seen some seriously crazy referee interferences up to this point, but what we haven't seen is a referee put a player in his place. And let's be honest, nobody does that quite like the refereeing GOAT, Nigel Owens. First up, we're at Tumen Park back in 2012 for Munster versus Benetton and Treviso in the Rabo Direct Pro 12. Treviso scrum half Tobias Botes is giving Nigel an absolute earful, and the big man was having none of it.
The law is quite clear. Maul is formed, held up, unplayable, turn of a ball, no issues whatsoever. I don't think we've met before, but I'm the referee on this field, not you. Stick to your job and I will do mine. If I hear you shouting for anything again, I'm going to be penalising you.
Iconic. It's literally the only word that can be used to describe this clip. This is not soccer has to be one of the greatest one-liners ever delivered on a rugby field. And somehow, he managed to equal it. And he did so 3 years later at the 2015 World Cup, a tournament that's popped up in this video more than a few times already. Nigel was refereeing a heavyweight clash between Scotland and the Springboks from Pool B. Scotland's Stuart Hogg went to ground a little too easy after Springboks' Tendai Matawaria barely grazed him, attempting to charge down a clearance kick at St James's Park in Newcastle, and Nigel was having absolutely none of it.
I was looking at it, he was committed in the air, there was nothing wrong with it. Dive like that again and come back here in 2 weeks and play, not today. Watch it.
How much do you want to bet that everyone sitting at home, all around the globe watching that live, was instantly googling what was happening at St James's Park in 2 weeks? Newcastle United and soccer's a safe guess. Nigel Owens delivering another banger of a clip for the ages. Man, some of his antics were crazy. I miss him so much. And with that said, we come full circle, from grassroots rugby and regional Queensland to the biggest stage the sport has to offer. Referees have been getting in the way, copping falcons, and absolutely owning players for as long as this game has been played. And honestly, long may it continue. But as wild as some of these moments were, nothing compares to how wild some of the craziest fights in rugby history are in this video here. Do yourself a solid and check it out. I appreciate you sticking around, and as always, thank you for watching.